favorite plants is passion flower, Passiflora incaranta. It's a native to the southeast, and one of the few cold hardy passifloras in the world. A lot of the Passiflora genus is subtropical. And this is a great plant to have around, and it was actually growing wild here all throughout my pasture. And I really wanted to kind of cultivate it and bring it in, give it a spot to grow, give it a spot to where it can really produce a lot of fruit. So we'll go into the hoop house here, and you can see it's just hanging all over the vines. We have a lot on this cage here, and like I say, this cage was just well placed. You can't really train the passion flower to go where you want it to. It has a good spreading nature. So passion flower is one of those plants that will produce just about anywhere it grows, but if you give it a trellis, it will really put on a lot of fruit for you. And that's what we're seeing here. All this fruit hanging, ripen here in the next, hopefully, month or so. You really want to wait till they're yellow and wrinkled to get it at its sweetest. Now you can eat it a little bit before that, but the seeds should be black and mature. All right, so we have a few different examples of how you can grow passion flower, including some leftover locust branches kind of just stacked up into a triangle, and the vines just absolutely loved it. And if there's an area that you get passion flower vines kind of suckering up from the ground, just give them something to climb on and you'll really up your fruit production, your flower production. Now, these do have a running tendency. I've even heard it called an underground stem. So I have some suckers coming up here all around the outsides, and you know, you can keep trellising, and that may work, but also know that you can transplant these. And I've heard mixed reviews on transplanting, but if you dig down far enough, you'll basically be following a singular root until it hits a T, in, you know, maybe 8 to 12 inches in the ground. And if you take a piece of that T with you, actually go all the way down with the straight root and get some of that perpendicular root, we've had a pretty good success rate of transfer. Passion flower has a lot of uses, and it's really great for wildlife in a lot of ways. One of the main uses is the leaves as a tea or a tincture and other herbal preparations. It's a nervine or a sedative. It's going to help you calm down. It's said to help with anxiety, kind of the circular thought pattern that might keep you up at night, insomnia, things like that. There's some really good alkaloids in here. There's quite a few other uses for it too. And of course the bees absolutely love it. You can see they're just crawling in. These flowers aren't even fully opened yet. And the bees get in here and they'll get in here and they'll just about fall asleep. They'll be sedated, and you know, they just really calm down. And I wonder if that's a little bit of the overlap for the human use and the animal use, or the bee use there. So it's a really calming for them, and they like to hang out there for quite a while, and you can kind of just touch them and pet a little bee on a passion flower. Now the other thing we have going on here is you almost always have ants on your passion flower vine. And these, and there's a reason for that. These little extra floral nectaries here, or little nectar deposits, you know, kind of this sweet sap in here, and the ants will love to come up and eat this. And in turn, the ants protect the passion flower from like predators like moths and butterflies and things that are going to lay their eggs there, and then they're going to, you know, consume this. So that, you know, it's kind of a give and a take there, a trade-off for the ants on the passion flower. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now another use as far as edibility goes that I've heard about is eating spring shoots. So you get these little suckers that come up all in the grass, all in the lawn here from these stands that have been here for quite a while. And this wouldn't be a good time here in the middle of summer when it's flowering, but typically in the early spring when these shoots first emerged, those were collected and eaten probably about like asparagus, maybe a cooked green. And that's just really the young, fresh leaves. It's not these old leaves that are kind of darker green. The Passiflora genus in general has had really interesting relationship with herbivores and predators over the years, and developed some chemicals that make it not so safe to consume by a lot of herbivores. And it's one of the few things, like my pig won't eat it. The deer don't really eat the leaves. They go after the flowers a lot, but they don't so much eat the leaves. And so it's good to grow out here where we have a lot of deer pressure, as long as you can kind of keep them off those flowers enough to get a little bit of fruit. Another interesting reference that I've come up with in Chalotsky and Hamel's book is that the roots were dug and pounded up for locust or briar scratches or kind of pricks on the skin. And I can tell you there's not a whole lot of root there, so hopefully you don't need a lot, but it's a use that I haven't really experimented with, but just thought worth mentioning. Passion flower is used in, you know, certain headache formulas and other things where there's just a lot of tension and stress. I was unsure if passion flower would grow up a single stalk like this, but it's not had too much of a problem with just a little bit of help. And this is a spot where the deer definitely travel very often, and you can see we've got some fruit being set. So that's really encouraging in a place that gets so much deer predation. Another thing I want to talk about is harvesting the leaves for medicine. And there's nothing wrong with coming out here and picking individual leaves throughout the season. You're not really going to affect the fruit crop. Now, I tend to go for the mature leaves in this case. While the light green growth just in the early spring might have been eaten, it's often those chemicals, you know, it's bitter most of the time, and those older leaves really concentrate those chemicals. So that's kind of what I'm selecting for my tea. I'll go in here and I'll pick leaves individually all throughout the season. You know, if I wasn't going for the fruit itself, this would be a great time just to cut this vine off, take all this inside to your drying rack, hang it on a hook in your basement, and you'd have a whole lot of herb here, and it'd be very easy to collect a lot. The plant is simply going to regrow, probably send up extra suckers all around it from being cut like that. It's not really going to damage the heart of the plant. A lot of these might be genetically the same because those runners, you know, once again, kind of called an underground stem. They run around from plant to plant. So it's got a really good root base established. Simply chopping the top growth is not going to be enough to kill the plant. So this year I'm really going to look to see if we can still get a good leaf harvest after we collect the maypops, because I would like to chop the plant, hang it like that, so I get a good amount of herb for my time, but I definitely want to try these maypops. Passion flower is a great polyculture plant. It needs something to grow on to really produce well. I've seen it producing on tulip poplar trees, mulberry trees, elderberry, and red buds, so long as the sunlight is right. Of course, it loves fence lines, and I think everybody has fence lines that they probably just keep mowed down, and you could easily get some food or some medicine from this on a fence line. So it's been about a month since we shot most of that last footage in that last video, and now I'm going to add to it. We've harvested our passion flower fruit, or our maypops, and we're going to try to kind of simmer it into a jelly or something like that. So let's check it out. So you can see the color in here, and you know, as far as ripeness of fruit goes, we harvested this all at once for multiple reasons, and I was, you know, kind of nervous about how much of it would be ripe and how much would be nice, because we've had some really sweet maypops, and we've also had some that are mostly tart, but we're seeing a lot of yellow in here, and that's going to be the really sweet stuff. So right now it's kind of 50-50. So we did about half the maypops. We kind of boiled them, simmered them for 15-20 minutes, and it really started to liquefy, and it was nice. And so what we did was we strained it through a colander, basically, just something to hold the seeds. And so we got this nice jar of pulpy goodness here, and this is what was left out of the colander. We can kind of get a little bit here and just we give it a taste test, and it's pretty tart, but it's really good, and I could see how it'd be really good in certain recipes, especially smoothies and things. So traditional jam or jelly would be sweetened, so I think we'll use the rest here to try to make a more traditional recipe. I am trying out a recipe here that I found online, and I'll give you a link. I believe it was a blog, some website, but they had a cup of passion flower fruit seeds and pulp, 3/4 cup honey, a tablespoon of lemon, like 3 cups of water. We're going to see if this will make a quick ferment for us. It'll take a few days to get it started, and then a few more days to really bubble up good, and then hopefully we can jar this up and maybe have a nice cordial or drink. All right, so here we have it mixed, and it said honey or cane sugar, and of course we don't really have cane sugar here, so I did use honey, and I know that's not as good for ferments, but we'll see what happens. So here I've kind of mashed in or mixed in some frozen persimmon pulp with the maypop juice, and I think I'm going to go to the dehydrator with this to maybe make a nice fruit leather. Could definitely add some hickory nut bits or something if we wanted it to be more substantial, but it's getting really thick and nice on me. So I've just pulled these out of the dehydrator, and they actually look pretty good. I had to flip them, and I did put a little bit of root starch in here, but we're getting quite a good consistency. It's almost a little, it is almost like it was a little baked, but still rather gelatin. Let me just try a little piece on the side here. Yeah, so it's still gooey, not fully dehydrated, but pretty good. So we tried several ways to eat the native passion flower fruit, and I'm still not sure what the best way is. I've simmered it and then poured off the pulp that way, and I have a nice little jar in the freezer now. We've used the Foley to try to get the pulp and the juice, and what I did with that is we took a little bit there and I mixed it with some frozen persimmon pulp, and we made some fruit leathers basically out of that in the dehydrator. That was really good, so I plan on doing that again. But basically just, consuming these fruit during the season is probably one of the easiest ways to take advantage. If anybody has any more insight or has experimented with ways yourself, let us know. That's kind of my take on it. So I'll end it with that, and thank you all for watching.